Hi, I'm Russell Anderson, National President of the Australian Cinema Pioneers. Hopefully this finds you well and in good spirits. It's been a challenging year for the cinema industry, and throughout those challenges, the Society has done its utmost to support and advise our members on their needs. Unfortunately, this year we're unable to hold the 87th Annual Anniversary Dinner. We have recorded the presentations of the National Pioneer of the Year Award and the State Pioneers of the Year Awards. We've also recorded the Humanitarian Award. You'll be able to view these on our website and Facebook pages. I thank the NEC, the National Executive Committee, for their support and advice throughout the year. We look forward to better times in 2021.
Hello, I'm Anne Wills, and it's my pleasure to present an award to the wonderful John Cronin today. Let me tell you about John. He first got bitten by the movie bug when his mum Irene took him to see Singing in the Rain when he was 10 years old. He left school at 14 and was working in a local deli with his sister. Yvonne came in and said, "I'm an usherette at Adelaide Hoyt's Regent Cinemas and there's a job going as a cadet." And John applied for and got that job. And that began a 52-year career, well, love affair, with the movie industry for John Cronin. Then television hit Adelaide in 1959 and he was told to change his career because everybody knew that telly was going to kill movies. Oh. So he gave him a stint at the EMI record company. He managed a record store and then he decided to go into the country to be on radio, which is where I think he met his lovely dear wife, Margaret. In the mid-60s, he came back to Adelaide and he worked in the film industry for wonderful Clifford Theatres. I met him in 1968 and we have been family friends, almost brother and sister, I suppose you could say, from that time. I was the weather girl, well actually now it would be called a weather person, but I was the weather girl at Channel 9 in those days, and he asked me to come down and participate in, of all things, a go-kart race at the O'Halloran Hill Drive-In. And I think he lined me up on a date with Bill Reddin, who was a footballer for Norwood, and he was 7'3" and I'm 5'1". Do the math. It didn't work. We were promoting a movie called Grand Prix, and then over the years, I think Cronin and I have done about maybe 100 successful promotions for movies. And he's the only guy that ever got Ernie Sigley, who was a really big name on Adelaide television, into the cinemas to watch a movie. Nobody deserves this award more than John Cronin for his enthusiasm, his love, his dedication to the movie industry. So congratulations, John. You really deserve this, and being named the 2020 Australian Cinema Pioneer of the Year. John. Here we go.
Thank you, my darling. Thank you, Wilsey, my most generous friend, most generous person I know, Wilsey.
You taught me.
Now, let me tell you something. Let me ask you something. How many awards have we got between us?
19 Logos and an OAM, or 2 OAMs. How many?
And one of these.
And one of those.
Okay, well, I nearly caught up to you. Anyway, it's an old joke. I'd firstly like to thank the National President, Russell Anderson, and the Executive Committee of the Australian Cinema Pioneers for this great honour. And I'd like to also dedicate this award to my late wife, Margaret, otherwise known as Maggie, and Lovey. We got the Lovey from a Matt Helm film with Dean Martin and Stella Stevens. Stella Stevens' character in the film was Lovey Craves It.
And she did.
And she did. Anyway, Margaret was by my side throughout my 52-year career in the film industry. Special thanks to my Vice President Bob Parr and my mates from WA, Alan Stiles and Kathy Sharp, for all the work that they put in to nominate me for this award. Thanks to all my former colleagues and friends for their generous testimonials. I've been extremely fortunate in having many mentors during my career. The late Ted Winter, Hoyt's Adelaide, the dad that I never had. He was brilliant, and Ted was with Hoyt's all his life, started when he was 13, retired when he was 60. Unfortunately, he died when he was 99, but we were still good friends to the end. my sister Yvonne Clive for helping me get the job at the Regent Theatre as a cadet. Others include Irving Cook, Clifford Theatres, Terry Jackman Hoyts, Richard Guardian Hoyts, Alan Finney Roadshow, Stephen Basil Jones Sony, and of course my Fox family led by Mark Aldridge. And that's just to mention a few. There have been many people who've helped me along the way. I'm also, I've been very lucky in living in Adelaide, where you could virtually do whatever you wanted to do and get away with it. We had some very wonderful promotions for things like Bedroom Mazurka, Blazing Saddles, The Producers, also The Grasshopper, and A Man and a Woman. I remember getting a car into the foyer of a theatre and filling it up with Marlboro cigarettes, and had a competition for people to guess how many cigarettes were in the car.
How many?
I don't know. It was rigged, I think. Nobody won it.
And I remember for Grasshopper, you made us eat chocolate-covered grasshoppers. Thanks, Cronin.
That's all right. They were very posh ones. They came from David Jones. And also with the Grasshopper, we had trouble because we wanted to promote Grasshopper for what it was. And there's a scene in the film with the plane flying overhead with the words F something on it. And we knew that we wouldn't get the paper to publish that particular scene. So what we did is every day we put the plane in tailing this banner, and each day we had a different letter on it. So at the end of the week we'd covered the whole F-bomb.
Yeah.
Anyway, they're the things that we got up to in those days. But baked beans for Blazing Saddles, that was very popular. And there were lots of other great movies around at that time. I thought were great movies anyway.
They were.
And I was privileged to work on those big blockbusters, like the Spider-Man movies and Avatar, Moulin Rouge, Australia, and Romeo and Juliet. And there were plenty more as well. So I really am appreciative of this award, and I thank everyone who's been associated with me throughout my career.
You deserve it, darling. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Mike Selwyn and I'm the president of the New South Wales branch of the Australian Cinema Pioneers. The Australian Cinema Pioneers is a society that exists to bring together people who have spent their careers working in the cinema industry, encompassing exhibition, distribution and production. So it's a very broad range of people, and today we have the honour of presenting our New South Wales Cinema Pioneer of the Year, which is given to somebody who has had an exceptional career in the industry. This year's recipient is someone who started with Australian production with many of the people who are now very well known in the industry and actually built up her career in international productions, culminating in films such as Wim Wenders' Until the End of the World. Stunning broad-scale production which shot all over Australia and by the look of it all over the rest of the world. At that moment she then moved into working for the Australian screening agencies, working for bodies such as the AFC, the FFC and of course Screen Australia, as well as helping Tasmania. I don't know what it's called. It's not
Wide Angle Tasmania.
That's it. Working with the AFC, the FFC, and of course Screen Australia, and also helping Wide Angle Tasmania. So she was able to assist many filmmakers with their careers over this period. At the end of this period, she then left Screen Australia and moved into documentary production, where she has now had a third distinguished career, including films such as the Namatjira project, a wonderful piece of work. For those of you who haven't kind of worked it out, I'm very honoured to say the 2020 recipient of the New South Wales Cinema Pioneer of the Year is Julia Overton. Julia, congratulations on your wonderful career, and it gives me great pleasure to award you the 2020 New South Wales Pioneer of the Year.
Thank you very much, Michael. It gives me great pleasure to receive it. Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you all the members of the Cinema Pioneers. I must say, I was very surprised and then shocked. Am I already a pioneer, I thought? Seems like only yesterday that I arrived in this country and was being told by Rolf de Heer at the film school how to schedule a film, and then being mentored there by the redoubtable Anthony Buckley, looking stentoriously over his glasses at me whilst nurturing me through the process of filmmaking whilst at the film school. I was very lucky there. I was not actually a student, but I learnt so much from that time with all those students and with Buckley. And I've been very fortunate to have been a party to the film industry in Australia. The telling of stories is so important in every culture, and in times like this I think the storytelling is even more important. I didn't mean to be too serious, but somehow it went there. When I first came to Sydney, and after I got my job at the film school, and I was the same age as the students, and I spent more time with them than the staff. And then when I left there, after working with Buckley on a series of 7 short films, well, they were 40-minute long films, was running a course on stage to screen, where we took 7-8 theatre directors, and they were all able to make their own films. And that was a wonderful introduction. I learnt so much. And Buckley gave me a break, and I took it. And then when I left the school, another highly regarded producer, Dick Mason, gave me a chance on my first feature film, Winter of Our Dreams. Who would have thought? My first feature film in Australia, I was working with Dick Mason, John Digan, Judy Davis, Brian Brown, all of whom, all at pivotal points in their careers as well. We made the film for $365,000, and it set me and others on the way. And I hope, over the years I've got left, to return the favours that Dick and those and Buckley gave me and mentoring me. I've been lucky to have been around when local production was supported so generously, and with governments who understood the importance of an Australian voice. Dick and I had a wonderful partnership. We produced 4 feature films, 3 telemovies together, and I forged relationships that continue to this day with so many people. Here I probably should mention Henry Dangar, editor extraordinaire, Stephen Wallace, who has gone on to such a stellar career in many areas of the film world, as have many from the 80s and the 90s. They're very productive for me. Films such as the aforementioned Until the End of the World, which was quite an eye-opener, Tadawali with Ernie Dingo, Spider and Rose with Ruth Cracknell and Bill Bennett, who I worked with several times on very good films. Black Man's Houses, which opened me to the world of Flinders Island and was my second excursion into working with Indigenous storytellers, and I found that a very, very exciting thing to be doing, be able to be part of enabling their stories. And then films such as Aftershocks with Jeff Burton and Cut with Kimball Rendell, which was probably the closest I got to the Hollywood fiasco, because we had Molly Ringwald and Kylie Minogue, and as soon as they were around, the tenor of everything changed. But they were all fantastic experiences. And at the same time, obviously, I was developing many projects that never came to fruition. But in the end, the fundraising without success and a young family led me to think about other avenues. And I started working at the funding bodies, the AFC, FFC, and then Screen Australia. Now, bureaucracy and I were a hard fit at times. The difference between acting on instinct and having to be very considered took me a while to get used to. But thanks to sterling advice and support, particularly from Brian Rosen and Kim Dalton, I managed to get through that hurdle. And having said that, once I adapted, I really enjoyed being able to assist filmmakers get their stories across the line. It was wonderful to see. And because I knew how hard it was, I really identified. And it was also, I have to say, very nice to have your phone calls returned immediately. There are so many projects and filmmakers I'm so proud to have assisted in this time. I can't name them all, but the ones that come to mind, Glendon Ivan with his short film at Cannes, Adam Elliott with his Oscar, Tony Kravitz at Cannes, Kate Shortland with so many films, Rachel Ward with films, Michael Cordell, and Brendan Fletcher, David Jowsey going to Sundance, so many things. When Brian Rosen asked me to take over from, go to the FFC when he was there, he asked me to go and run the doc department. Now, I'd always stayed away from documentary because, as most of you probably know, I'm married to a documentarian, and very early on in our life together, we did have a time of working together on documentary, but it didn't really work very well, and we decided very quickly that we wouldn't work together, and I would stay in drama and Tom would stay in documentary. And of course, now it was really testing, and I have to take my hat off to Tom here, because if he did get funding for a project, everyone thought it was because of me, and if he didn't get funding for a project, he thought it was because of me. So he was very, very gracious, and so I thank you, Tom, for that. The other thing that I did when I was at the FFC and then at Screen Australia was push and push and push to get as many different sorts of documentaries told as possible, not just ones that fitted into the traditional mould that were the easier ones to fund. And I think one of my proudest achievements whilst I was working dedicated to documentary was when I was able to get 12 films into IDFA, 12 Australian documentaries into what is the Cannes of documentary. And so that was no mean feat. And I was very proud of all the filmmakers who achieved this. I mean, I was only the facilitator, but I was really glad to be able to enable, and I've stayed friends with an awful lot of these people and consider them friends, not just a person with dollar signs in their eyes. Now, as I mentioned also, we did have a young family, and we're both filmmakers, and we shared the bringing up of son Sam. And it was always important to me that other parents on films had access to childcare, and it was always built into my budgets. And I think this is something that is important, and it's also important to remember, and I know this sounds a bit preachy, but bringing up a child is not only the woman's responsibility, it's the parent's responsibility. And I have to say that Sam has got great relationships with both of us, because we both stepped away at times and we were both full on at time. And when I left the agency some 8 years ago. I've produced many documentaries. I'm very proud of the ones that Michael mentioned. I've done some that ended up on television only. And I've been in a mentoring capacity since then too, I would say. And one of the films that I mentored was actually a film called Miguelito by our son Sam Zabriskie, which had a great theatrical release and very good festival exposure before all this started. And I believe very much it's important to continue sharing knowledge. It's hard for people, harder now than even before COVID, because there are so many more people wanting to make films. Less money available, many fewer avenues. However, there are always films being made. The excellent Baby Teeth is the one I would quote as a recent example. And it's so good for me to see the growth of those practitioners that I have supported along the way, either by working with them, Kate Crozer heading up the South Australian Film Corporation, Julie Ryan, who was my PM on Cut, who is now probably one of the most experienced producers in Australia, and she's just gone to work for the agencies, Ian Booth at Screen West, and so many more. I'm sorry if I haven't remembered all of you, but I do remember you in there somewhere. And it is so, I must say again, it is so important that we all get a chance to tell our own stories and in the appropriate medium, and we are able to reach our audience. And whether it's drama or documentary or TV broadcast, it's all in the world of storytelling. And that's my great belief. And I think we should keep on making those stories. So thank you, Pioneers, for giving me this acknowledgement. And I must say, I'm not bringing out the Zimmer frame yet. Thank you.
On behalf of the Queensland Cinema Pioneer Committee, I would like to introduce you to our 2020 Cinema Pioneer of the Year, Mr. Tony Burke. Congratulations, Tony, on your award for 2020.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank Christine and the committee for bestowing on me the honour of being Queensland Cinema Pioneer for the year 2020. I would also like to mention and thank a few of the people who have assisted and guided me during my career within the cinema industry. From my days at Metro Goldwyn Mayer, Ken Kirkley and Frank Henley, at Roadshow Film Distributors, Ian Sands and Alan Finney, and at Birch Carroll Call, Terry Jackman, John Smith and Richard Park. I have also been fortunate to establish a number of friendships during my journey, and am pleased that they are still my friends today. When I commenced my career in 1956, there were 10 major film distribution companies, all standing alone. In Brisbane, each suburb had at least one, and some had 2 cinemas, but there were no drive-ins. Speaking of drive-ins, I remember a number of years later when Pam and I were newly married, we would switch movie prints between drive-ins each night, sometimes for the complete 7-night season. On another occasion, we would pick up prints after the final night session and then on to the airport for interstate dispatch or to a country location for screening the next night. I am proud of my achievements within the cinema industry, in particular my 21 years as President of the Queensland branch of the Cinema Pioneers. At my time as a member and then President of the Motion Picture Industry Movie Club, the highlights of which were the Melbourne Cup Luncheons and the annual Movie Ball. Whilst accepting this award, I am conscious of the hardship facing the industry today with the COVID-19 pandemic. During my career from a 16-year-old office junior with Metro Goldwyn Mayer to my retirement 44 years later, the cinema industry has faced many challenges. From the introduction of black and white TV, then colour TV, onto video and home entertainment, onto movies on demand. But the industry adjusted and overcame these challenges and emerged smarter and stronger. I am confident that with the experience the industry has obtained over the years, that once again it will adjust and succeed in surviving this current challenge and will again emerge smarter and stronger. Thank you.
I'm John Cronin, South Australian President of the Australian Cinema Pioneers. It gives me great pleasure today to present to Peter Maunder the South Australian Cinema Pioneer of the Year for 2020.
Thank you, John.
Congratulations, Peter.
Thank you.
Now, Peter, where did you start? Where did all this start?
I started off at the Opening Star at Thebby as an assistant.
Is that the Thebby Town Hall?
Oh, that's right,
okay.
yeah. And from there on, I went to Croydon, Highmarsh, Woodville, and everywhere else, Wallace, before I went to Wallace.
Oh, good. I hope you got a petrol allowance for all that work you did. And where else did you go from there? Did you?
Greater Union.
Right.
I worked at the Forum, which was here.
Yes.
And the West Theatre.
Yeah, right. That would have been a good experience
It
for you.
was, excellent.
What are some of the movies that were showing there when you were there?
We had Earthquake.
Oh,
Sets around.
Yeah, good. Excellent. I remember seeing that and getting very scared.
Yeah.
Peter, what else have you done with the film industry? I know that you've helped a lot of people over the years.
I worked for Wallace Theatre.
Yeah.
Yes, down at the Theaterette, the drive-ins.
Yeah. And what about the Ocean Line drive?
Yeah, Ocean Line, we run that for a few years.
Yeah, that's good. Excellent. Well, you've earned this, my friend. You've done an excellent job in your career. Over 50 years, is
55 years.
55 years. I'm not even that old. But anyway, I'm glad that you've received this award for all the hard work you've put in over the years. Congratulations.
Thank you, John,
again.
and the Cinema Pioneers. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
With COVID times, it brings about a difference in how you present your Film Man of the Year for Western Australia, Cinema Pioneers. And it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to Max Reddin, who's been a wonderful servant and dedicated life whilst he was in our industry. Motion Picture Benevolent Fund, Cinema Pioneers, also on the executive of the West Australian Motion Pictures Executive Association, the Movie Ball team. Anything that was involved within our industry during his period of time, Max was, and he was always to the forward. Max, welcome. It's been a pleasure, and it's a little bit different doing this presentation to what we normally have.
Absolutely delighted to be here, Alan.
And so, you started your life when you first went to the movies with your mum at Snow White.
Yep, at the Plaza Theatre, and I can actually still remember the seat that I sat in.
Well, you're unbelievable, because I can't remember one seat I sat in.
Well, that's one of the great things that I have in my life, is that I can, for some strange reason, I can remember where I sat in any cinema for any film I've ever seen.
Right.
And I've probably seen 4,000 films.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, with your life, you've with your father started in the background, as well as your mum had a part-time job in the industry.
Yep.
And so, but your late father, Heath, wonderful man. He was a great servant as well.
He was.
Set a great example. Did you, with your mother and your father, would they give you sound grounding and?
Well, my dad had a very, very diverse career in the industry. He started with Paramount Pictures, he then went to Goldfields Pictures, he then went to Ace Theatres, and then he went to 20th Century Fox. So he was over a wide range of the industry.
And did that help you when you first went into it to work at the Liberty?
Well, that was a surprise going to the Liberty, because Lionel Hart was very, very different from anyone I've ever met. He was just incredibly different. I had a wonderful relationship with him. If he called me Max, I was in favour. If he called me son, I was in trouble.
And you spent a period of time, because you were around when they went to 70 mil and he did the deal with Columbia, wasn't it?
Yep. He put 70 mil into the Windsor Theatre and did an exclusive deal with Columbia Pictures, and it sort of made him, because it was really, really good. He had Lawrence of Arabia for more than a year down at the Windsor.
You had To Serve With Love for more than a year at Liberty.
To Serve With Love.
And what was that one Born Every Minute or something? Or what was it, the one, the sex one, or not sex, it was...
the sex education, Alan.
Yeah, sex education.
It was called The Right to Be Born.
Right to Be Born,
Yes.
Thank you.
Push,
so you
push Mrs. Miley.
Yeah, you had a wonderful run when you were in charge of that organisation,
Yeah, it was
as far as
fantastic.
film was
Yeah, it was
concerned.
great. There were good films, Easy Rider, To Serve With Love, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. It was just an amazing time.
Yeah.
It really was.
And then when we go a bit further, that Hoyt's headhunted you, and you went into work for Hoyt's.
Yep.
And tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I started at the Paris, and then the word came through that they were building Cinema One, and the Ambassadors was to close. So I actually managed both the Ambassadors and the Paris. Then the Ambass closed, and they built Cinema 1, they built Cinema 2, eventually built 2 and 3, and then 4 next door to it in the old lounge of the Royal Theatre.
Now, there is a fallacy that whilst you were looking after the Hoyts company in Western Australia, that the Salvation Army, they reckon that Arthur Styles paid for the Salvation Army to play outside of the Ambassadors because the Royal was just up the road rather than played at the Royal. Now,
I'm sure that's true.
Well, so did you actually complain?
I just spoke to the captain or whatever he was of the Salvation Army and said it was too noisy, that's all.
And did he tone it down at all?
Well, he shifted down to the grand, I think.
You were then headhunted to go to Hoyts asked you to go to Sydney and spent about 10 years there, was it? 10?
No, it wasn't.
Oh, sorry.
It wasn't anywhere near as long as that. It was right at the beginning of multiplexes, which caused an enormous amount of union problem because they expected at that time to have a ticket seller for each screen, a doorman or usher for each screen, a projectionist for each screen. And that wasn't the idea of multiplexes. The idea was to reduce staff, not increase it. So it caused a lot of trouble, enormous amount of trouble. And I flew around Australia trying to make it all work and trying to reduce staffing levels, and then went back to Sydney and thought, no, this is not for me. So we packed up and came back to Perth. Yeah.
All right, Max, well, thank you, but would you like to say a few words now?
It was an absolute pleasure to be in the industry for as long as I was. I've had a diverse career since then. We were in video, we were in book selling. We're now wonderfully retired, as you can see from the background behind us. We're having the most enjoyable time in our retirement, and I just think that anyone who's been able to spend almost a lifetime in the entertainment industry is very, very lucky. I'm one of those. Alan's one of those. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Max, and here on behalf of the West Australian Cinema Pioneers, I present you with this.
Thank you very much.
Memento for you.
That's very, very nice. I'm very, very pleased to see that. Thank you.
On behalf of the Australian Cinema Pioneers, it's my pleasure to present the 2020 Tasmanian Cinema Pioneer of the Year Award to David Heath. David's love affair with the cinema industry began in 1967 at Moorabbin Drive-In, where he started working there as a car hop. In 1987, after a stellar career managing various village locations around Victoria, he moved to Launceston, which he has described as the best decision he ever made. His 18 years in Launceston would be the highlight of his career. In addition to managing the Fourth Cinema Complex, marketing the cinema through newspapers, radio and television was also an important focus. He fostered and enjoyed a strong relationship with the Launceston Film Society, ultimately being given the honour of a lifetime membership. David would like to acknowledge the great support he received over his 35-year career from his family and colleagues. Congratulations, David, on being awarded the 2020 Tasmanian Cinema Pioneer of the Year. David has recorded this message of thanks.
Hello, my name is David Heath, Tasmanian Cinema Pioneer of the Year 2020. I would like to thank my Tasmanian Pioneer colleagues for the honour, and also wish everybody a safe and healthy 2021 so we can get away from this 2020 year that we've had. Thank you.
On behalf of the Australian Cinema Pioneers, it's my pleasure to present the 2020 Victorian Cinema Pioneer of the Year Award to Rod Hailey. Rod developed an interest in film at an early age, particularly the technical aspects of screening film. On joining Village Cinemas, he rose through the ranks to become chief engineer responsible for planning and installation of projection equipment. In the 1990s, he championed the revolution that was taking place in cinema projection and sound, and supervised the Golden Harvest and Village International cinema installations. This included many overseas locations, including Malaysia, Hong Kong, Italy, and Greece. After 50 years of continuous service in the industry, from second assistant projectionist to chief engineer at Village to finally doing some part-time work at Warrigal Cinemas, Rod retired. Rod said he could not have achieved everything he has without the support and collaboration of his colleagues. Congratulations, Rod, on your achievements on being awarded the 2020 Victorian Cinema Pioneer of the Year Award. If you would like to read more about Rod's career, details can be found on the Australian Cinema Pioneers website in their current edition of the Bulletin. As National President of the Australian Cinema Pioneers, it's my pleasure to present this year's Australian Cinema Pioneers Humanitarian Award. This award is presented in recognition of outstanding service to the cinema industry and the greater community by a member of the Australian Cinema Pioneers. This year's recipient is Tom Jeffrey. Tom has had a stellar career in production and as a groundbreaking director of Australian films. In 1981, he was awarded the Order of Australia. In 2007, he was the National President of the Australian Cinema Pioneers, and in 2018, he was New South Wales Pioneer of the Year. Let's take a look at some of Tom's career highlights.
Say, Ross, that the whole emphasis of police training is to enable him to handle human problems.
What can I do for you, ladies?
Every time you pick up a newspaper, there's a report on some society not holding an orgy or black mass or whipping party or some such bloody diversion.
I'm not in the habit of organising exotic events, I can assure you, Sergeant.
Removalist? Yeah. I know I don't remove it.
Someone called a removalist to this address.
Yeah, well, it weren't me, and I say what goes around this place. Now piss off or I'll spray the back of your throat with teeth.
You threatening me?
Now, I'm doing a line for you, you thick bastard.
Martin has it all. A devoted wife.
I can't live with an alcoholic pervert. I'm leaving you.
A dedicated and efficient secretary.
Are you thinking of blackmailing me?
Why don't you take me out to dinner like you said and find out?
An understanding boss.
I could have told him to go and get stuffed without sending you anywhere near him.
So why is Martin suddenly acting so strange?
He seems to feel that life isn't worth going on with. He intends to stay in there till he passes over.
Bloody man's gone round a twist.
Martin, if I offer to do a 3 in a bed, will you come out? Say something to me, please. Please, Martin.
He can't die in there. I need it for meetings.
Well, have you been taking drugs of any sort? Only alcohol.
Hey, look at that. What? Air conditioning. These bastards have got air conditioning.
Well, I'll be buggered.
Gee, must be a rough war down here.
Oh, I can just hear the news flash now. Armed Forces Radio.
Da 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 da.
He volunteered for service. They made him quite a man. Farewell, my son. Go with your friends. Go off to Vietnam.
This is the way to go to war, eh, Harry?
His mother cried a little. His girlfriend said she'd write. No time for sentimentals. You get out there and fight. But comrades, mates, side by side, they carried in their head the daily danger they were in. Who wants to end up dead?
So come and see this band of men. Cry a little, laugh a lot. Aussies being Aussies in the audience.
The Humanitarian Award is being presented to Tom for his 20 years commitment to the New South Wales Motion Picture Industry Benevolent Society. The Society helps pioneers who find themselves in difficult circumstances. As Chairman of Investigation and Relief, Tom requires an enormous amount of empathy, understanding and compassion when carrying out his interviews. As part of Tom's brief, he also is required to travel to as far away as Newcastle, the Central Coast and Moree, but always takes time out to have a cuppa with those in need. Tom, congratulations.
Thank you very, very much indeed, Russell. Well, thank you. I'm extremely honoured to receive this award. And you're quite right about those cups of tea. They're actually very important, you know, because it allows me to have a long chat with the beneficiaries and so on. And they're all very, very interesting people. They've all had marvellous careers, and I've learned a lot from them about the history of the industry and how the projectionists and all of that, how they operated in days gone by. So that's been important. I generally go and visit people round about the time I deliver Christmas cheer and winter comfort to them. Christmas cheer and winter comfort, what's that?
Very Dickensian.
Well, yes, it is a bit. And, well, what it is just a little gift that the Motion Picture Industry Benevolent Society here in New South Wales gives to each of the beneficiaries, a little bit of a cash payment to give them something extra in the middle of the year to keep them warm, maybe, you know, new pair of slippers or something. And at Christmas time, of course, it may help with them buying presents for the family and so on. And of course, the other thing is that I could never do this job on my own. It's a great honour to do the job, and I do appreciate the support and encouragement that I've received from lots and lots of people. Not least, of course, was Len Webb, who was my former chairman of Investigation and Relief, and I took over from him when he died about 10 years ago, sadly. He was well respected by everyone, but particularly by the beneficiaries. So he gave me a kind of a standard to try and live up to, which was not easy, I've got to say. And then, of course, Bruce Leonard, our former Treasurer Secretary, he was extremely helpful, and I valued the advice that he gave me up until last year. And of course, now Ross Barnard has taken over, and he's doing a fabulous job. The other people, of course, that I rely on immensely is our esteemed chairman, Murray Forrest, who was the initial awardee of the Humanitarian Award last year that you kindly gave to him. He's been a mentor and a colleague and a friend to me for many, many years, and I value his support and advice. John Rochester, who is the chairman of the Finance Committee. I've never been very strong on arithmetic, and John keeps a very watchful eye on the sums that I do and when I'm putting proposals through to the council for support of beneficiaries. And then, of course, there's the council themselves, who have been marvellous in their generous support to me over many years now, and I thank them very much indeed. I can't sort of let this moment go by making a special mention to Tony Buckley, who is one of our wonderful patrons. Now, Tony got me onto the Council of the Motion Picture Industry Benevolent Society, about 12 years ago now, I think. So thank you, Tony, for getting me there and twisting my arm a little bit. but Tony has been a wonderful supporter of the Society for many, many years. And our patrons, not least of which Alan Ridge, has also been a wonderful supporter of the Society, and indeed a donor, a very generous donor to it too. Talking of donors, we couldn't do it without them, and we do look always to their support, because without them we couldn't do what we do, and I couldn't do what I do on behalf of the Society, so thank you for that. It's interesting to consider the notion of being a beneficiary. You never know when a hard time is going to hit you, when you're going to maybe have a major medical expense, or just particularly say with the bushfires and the COVID-19, we've helped a number of people this past year or so, and quite apart from the financial assistance that we may be able to give, there's a kind of an unquantifiable multiplier effect that provides to beneficiaries or potential beneficiaries, the lessening of tension, of stress, of worry, and also the fact that it provides them with the confidence that their colleagues and friends are there to support them in their time of need. And in a sense, it turns helplessness into hope. And that, I think, is the really important thing that the Motion Picture Industry Benevolent Society provides. So thank you again very, very much indeed, Russell, for this wonderful award. I'll treasure it, and I do, and it'll take pride of place on my bookshelf. Thank you very much indeed.